I'm down here in the Sauternes area just south of Bordeaux at the hallowed estate of Chateau, the world-class estate that produces the finest sweet wines, white sweet wines in the world. Today we're going to be tasting the 2003, the 2005, the incredible top-notch 2001, and the 2009. These wines come from greatly shriveled up grapes from the Botrytis fungus that in the end concentrate these juices with such a degree of sweetness that it's really unmatched anywhere on earth. So come on in with me and let's meet cellar master Sandrine Garbay and also Pierre Lurton, the manager. Well, the first wine we're going to be tasting is the 2005, and I wonder if you could talk to us just for a minute about the growing year of 2005, what that was like in terms of weather.
Yes, so it was a warm weather during the vegetative cycle. So we had a very good ripeness at the beginning of September, and then we had very good conditions, again warm and dry, but just enough humidity to have noble rot, a good noble rot. But as the grapes were very ripe, and then the conditions for noble rot very good, the grapes dry very well and rapidly. So we had very high level of concentration in sugar. So we could harvest and pick the grapes with just infection by noble rot, but not many passerillage. We harvest the grapes in a total infection by botrytis, but not so dry, because the level of sugar was very high at that time.
Normally, in an average vintage, when do you finish the picking of these grapes?
Normally, we finished at the end of October, beginning November.
Okay.
For 2005, we finished middle October,
okay.
So a little bit early.
Well, let's do some tasting of this fabulous 2005. And very full, rich, sweet, so lots of notes of orange in there and like a marmalade, pineapple. Not highly acidic. This is very well rounded and very rich tasting. And so there is lovely acidity in there. But it's very light. It's understated, so to speak. So you have just a little bit of acidity in there, starting to help drive it along. But the richness is just tremendous for this 2005 vintage. Very impressive, Pierre. Excellent wine. Let's move on to the 2003, and once again, perhaps you can share with us, Sandrine, a little bit about the growing conditions that year.
So 2003 is a very special vintage because of the very hot summer, and we had really very high temperatures in June, July, August. So really big ripeness of the grapes at the end of August, and by chance. We had just enough rain at the beginning of September to have a good development of the noble rot, a good infection by botrytis. It was not so easy because of the dry and warm conditions, but by chance the rain came at the good moment. And we could start the harvest middle September, which is very early, and finish the harvest end of September. So for this vintage we had very short harvest, 9 days of picking from the 16th September until 25th September. For the first time that we harvest came in one wave of picking and that we finished so early. So very exceptional.
This wine is so very complex. Because you have normally there are 6 and 7 waves of picking, gives a lot the complexity, the synergy of the wine. But when I taste this one, you have a lot of complexity. It shows the different comportment of the botrytis at the different place of Chateau. It shows the complexity of the terroir.
And that's what I was it's not necessarily the vintage growing year, it's the terroir that really adds to the complexity of a wine. Absolutely.
Exactly. Because we could imagine that this vintage will be simple because of a very short harvest in one wave, homogeneous conditions, and in fact, no, this vintage is very complex.
Yes.
And it's
And very rich and still.
This has a slightly different profile though than the 2005. The 2005 is beautifully round and rich and sexy and voluptuous. This has a little bit more raciness to it.
Yes.
Maybe a little bit. I don't know if it's acidity or it's almost like a sweet lemon, a little bit under the surface, but it has a little bit more focused drive to it. In this one, the sweetness is all there. But the 05 just said, I am so rich, I'm like a cashmere sweater, I'm just beautiful.
Exactly.
This one says, I'm a little bit more focused with maybe a little bit more acidity, but the sweetness comes through. Delicious wine, just absolutely delicious wine.